What's going on, guys? This is the Red Rogue, and today I'll be looking at the first seasonal Mythic Plus affix for Shadowlands, Prideful. Now that we're a few weeks into the expansion and people have gotten their hypothetical feet wet in the dungeons, and in the case of Plaguefall, literally wet in plague and slime and other gross things, ew, people are probably starting to get into the 10 plus range of keys. And once you get there, you'll have to deal with the Prideful affix. Well, obviously this is a brand new affix for this specific season of Shadowlands. So what is Prideful, and how does it work, and how do you deal with it? Well, hopefully this video helps explain that to you, so let's dig in. As always, this video will be segmented out into sections so you can skim through the information at your leisure. This information will expect you to have a basic understanding of Mythic Plus, though I will be doing a Basics of Mythic Plus series on the channel eventually, as well as to go over everything from the very entry point of your dungeoning journey in the future. So for our level 10 affix in Season 1, we'll be dealing with Prideful. Prideful will not rear its head until you've cleared at least 20% of the trash count needed for the dungeon. From there on, it procs every 20% afterwards, so you'll have one of these big red boys show up at 20%, 40, 60, 80, and 100% trash completion. Due to this, I highly recommend having an add-on such as Mythic Plus Timer or a weak ore that shows you things like how much percent each ad gives towards the counter, or maybe plays a sound effect when you're close to triggering Prideful. So now that you know how Prideful occurs, what exactly is it? Well, Prideful basically looks like if you took the genie from Aladdin and he was super frickin' pissed off and decided to take his frustrations and grievances on you and your 4 best friends, aka the rest of your dungeon group. When he spawns, you'll hear some banter from Sire to Nathrian, and then you'll have to defeat the manifestation of Pride. He has one main move, and then an annoying area of effect attack. Bursting with Pride is that area of effect attack and has a 60-yard range, and every time the manifestation casts it, not only will everyone in that area take damage, but the move will become even stronger with every consecutive cast. You'll know how many times the manifestation has used it because he will have a stacking buff, and thankfully it caps at 20 stacks. The goal is to kill this ad quickly before the AoE damage becomes too powerful for your healer or group to handle. His other ability is Belligerent Boast. This targets one random player every 7 seconds. Whomever is picked will get these 4 red ball looking things to show up around their character model. After 4 seconds, these balls will blast away from them, and anyone who gets in the way of those red balls will take shadow damage and be stunned for 2 seconds. On the bright side, it can be removed with a magic dispel, though you can still totally hit that one guy in your group who keeps getting all the loot just out of spite if you really want. Just blame it on lag, no one will ever know. Malicious intent aside, the goal with this move is to not hit anyone, though it seems to take a bit of practice for people to realize exactly how this one works. The directions the balls go in won't change even if you move or turn around or anything, so you have to be very mindful of who is in front, behind, and to both your sides. If you're in a reasonably balanced group that isn't all melee DPS or something crazy like that, then it should be pretty easy for everyone to find a position that results in no one ever needing to move out of the way of the Belligerent Boast blasts. Though, depending on the area you proc Prideful in, you might need to move back or away from others. The ideal and easiest thing from my experience, and 9 times out of 10 this holds true, is for the person that's targeted with Belligerent Boast to stay completely still, and everyone else shuffles around as needed to avoid getting hit. Once you've stunned your healer like 3 times and your tank even more, you'll hopefully have slain the manifestation of Pride and will gain the Prideful buff for 1 minute. This will increase all damage you deal by 30%, your movement speed by 60%, and you'll regenerate 5% of your total mana every second. This buff will last for 1 minute, so you better start hustling to the next group of trash or the boss fight so you can make good use of it. Ideally, if your group is able to handle moving and avoiding the red balls, you'll want to try and drag this Prideful manifestation as close as you can to the next thing you're going to attack without accidentally pulling it, so that way you can proc the damage buff and roll right into the next pack of ads or into the next boss. If for some reason you meet an unfortunate end and your group wipes while fighting the manifestation, there is a silver lining. His health, unlike any other enemy in a dungeon, does not reset on a wipe, so even if you all die and he has like 10 health left, you'll be able to run right back and finish off that last little bit and then get your buff to proc. A really important thing you need to know about when you proc the Prideful buff. You must be near the manifestation of Pride when it dies, or else you will not receive the Prideful buff. Whether you're alive or dead surprisingly doesn't matter. But yeah, if you release and you're super far away when it dies, you won't get the buff at all. So if only like 1 or 2 members of your party are dead and you can finish it off, then just res the people afterwards, or you can release afterwards and at least get some usage out of it. If you die after getting the Prideful buff, it does persist through death, so you won't just lose it immediately, which is nice. Now, the big thing about Prideful and why it is an important affix to master is that you can use it in various ways to benefit your group based on the week's affixes. For instance, on a tyrannical week, you'll often want to get your Pridefuls to line up with every boss fight if possible, or at least as many as you can. However, on a fortified week, you might instead want the buff for an exceptionally hard to kill trash pack. It does take a little bit of planning and coordination to really get the most out of the Prideful affix. Proccing the damage buff randomly when you have to wait for enemies to show up, or if there's any RP going on that leaves you wasting the buff, or having it proc and there isn't enemy nearby to use it on, or even worse if people are dead when the Prideful manifestation dies and they don't get the buff at all, are all things that will greatly diminish the usefulness of this affix and will instead make it feel a lot more of a nuisance than anything. Also, as a big extra heads up, it seems that the manifestation of Pride is buffed by the Fortified affix, since it's technically an add in the dungeon, so that's something you'll really want to remember in the future, as on Fortified, the AoE damage can hurt quite a lot. Oh, and something I nearly forgot to mention that will be very handy. Once you reach level 10 keystones or higher, if you fail to successfully complete the key in time, you'll often find a Venthyr dude that's hanging out near each of the bosses. If you talk to him, he'll allow you to spawn a Prideful manifestation instantly, and it will reset your sated debuff that you receive after you use Time War, Bloodlust, Heroism, or however you want to call it. This allows you to basically get another shot at the boss that you're having trouble with, which can be very nice if you're just trying to complete the key. You can only use this Venthyr thing, I believe, 4 times in the entire dungeon total though, so there is still room for error, but it at least gives you a few extra chances. You'll know exactly how many free Prideful chances you have left by the number of stacks of a buff that the Venthyr has on him. Prideful is definitely a very interesting affix, and it seems loosely inspired in concept by the Awakened affix from Battle for Azeroth's Mythic Keystone Season 4 affix. Not in the sense of how it works, but in the principle behind it, because Awakened and Prideful both change the way you pull the dungeon a little bit, and they also benefit you more if you know how to use them effectively. Whereas other times they kinda just get in the way or they don't feel that meaningful if you aren't using them to their full potential. Some people seem to be like really crazy in love with this affix, and it's okay. I mean, I don't mind it. I think it's a pretty good affix. I don't think it's like the best thing ever, but it is pretty cool to have some extra damage right when you need it, especially if you can line it up right. However, being that it's only a minute long buff, I kinda wished it lasted a little bit longer, cause it really feels like it's over before it even began. Take that as you will. Anyways, I hope that this video helps you understand how Prideful works, so that way once you start getting up into the higher level keys, you'll know how it works and understand it ahead of time so you don't have any issues in the future. If you're more of a novice or even intermediate at Mythic Plus and aren't quite there yet, don't worry, I will be doing videos covering things from the basics, literally from square one of Mythic Plus, so if you need help with that, feel free to ask me in the comments below, or you can hit me up on my community Discord, which I'll leave a link to that in the description below, so I also have that as another method of communication. Anyways, I just wanted to take a little bit of time to thank you all so much for watching, and to thank all of my regular viewers, commenters, subscribers, and especially my patrons, who all help make these Shiba Shenanigans possible. Thank you all so much for watching. This is the Red Rogue, and I'll see you guys around.